Hello, everybody, and welcome back to QuickBooks Quick Hits. My name is Brittany. I'm a supervisor in the Management Advisory Services group here at SVA. I am also a QuickBooks Pro advisor in both level 1 and level 2. I work regularly in all versions of QuickBooks and QuickBooks Desktop. I work in a bunch of different softwares helping our clients with questions and trainings. And this is our third installment. So thank you for joining me. Today, we're going to go over automated workflows in QuickBooks, how to save time, get paid faster, and how to stay on track. The majority of today is just going to be a demonstration where I'm going to walk you through how to set up your invoice AR workflows and your bills and your AP workflows. But before I toggle to our sample environment in QuickBooks, I just wanted to briefly touch on our next webinar. It's going to be September 24th of 2025. It's this one, and the one in October is going to be mainly focused on all of the new changes that are coming up in QuickBooks Online. If you haven't seen them already hit your profile, you're likely to see them by the end of September. Right now, you have the option to revert back to your old environment, but that change will become permanent on October 30th, I believe. So the next two webinars will focus on all of these changes, all of the AI that they're introducing, and how you can use all of this, maximize the business feed, things of that nature. So without further ado, I'm gonna move to our sample environment. Okay, so here we are in our sample company. So automated workflows in QuickBooks Online. There are a few different types of automated workflows. I've looped some in here to touch back to some prior installments of our Quick Hit series. The first one is the recurring transactions, being kind of a type of automated workflow here in QuickBooks Online. If you remember, if you tuned in, if not, I encourage you to take a peek and watch us go over it. There are three different types you can set up: the scheduled, unscheduled, and the reminder. You'll do that. New, you can pick your transaction type and kind of go from there. Just a brief reminder. Another one is our rules, our bank rules. The auto add feature, which helps you save time on your day-to-day bookkeeping. And I think in a previous webinar, we went over this. I said that you weren't able to do account transfers, and I just want to point out that I was incorrect in that and correct myself in this one. You can do bank transfers and set it up as a rule, just so you're aware. And that is something that's possible through new role. You just hit transfer and select the bank accounts. So yeah. And if you're working in the newer environment, it's not going to look like this. If you're working in the newer environment and you're unable to follow along with this, I would encourage you to reach out to your SVA representative. They can help you or put you in contact with me, and I can help you using the new environment, figure out how to do recurring transactions and rules and where to go to get to this workflow automation. Okay, so our workflow automation, we're gonna kind of walk through invoice reminders, bill reminders, payment reminders, bill payment reminders. There's a bunch of different templates that they have pre-set up for you. So, I mean, even if you just kind of look and send employee document reminder, this is, I mean, unrelated to your regular accounting tasks and more related to internal stuff. There's employee onboarding, get reminded, complete employee exit formality reminder. So it's not just your day-to-day accounting tasks that you can use this feature for. I just think it's important to point that out because, setting this up can take a lot of work and you really want to maximize all sorts of, especially if you're using QuickBooks Online Payroll or, things of that nature. So in our invoice and our AR workflow, I would strongly recommend using the templates that they have prepared for you. I mean, you can go into create your own custom workflow. I think a lot of times it can be kind of confusing to set up your own workflow if you've never seen a flow chart before. So let's just like invoice reminder. And then, you can kind of create your flow chart from here, add your different parameters. So if you're unfamiliar with this layout, I would recommend just starting with the templates that they give you. So let's say in your invoice process, you want to be notified anytime a new invoice is created. You can just search, like I'm just picking invoice, but you can do this notify about invoice creation. And this is the same on the AP side of things. So if you want to be notified anytime there's a new bill um, that's created in your file, you can do this exact same thing. And it's nice because it will lead into the approval route, right? So if every time there's a new invoice created, you could set it up to get an email to yourself to then click on this link and it'll take you into QuickBooks to look at the invoice. Keep in mind with this specific workflow and with a lot of them, if you look at where it says company email, it's kind of highlighted grayish, invoice number, invoice date, company name, all this. Don't change these just because it's linked within QuickBooks to pull from certain parts of the file. So if you modify this, it won't know where it's supposed to be getting that information any longer. So just change, like you could change this to dear or hello or hi or hey, whatever works for you. And then don't change this link. You can add and take away basically anything that's not highlighted gray. Okay, so you can choose to have this alerted, when the invoice is greater than 0. So anytime an invoice is created, or let's say, if it's 10,000, anytime an invoice is greater than 10,000, you'll get an email notification that a new invoice was created. So you would hit save and turn on once you're completed. Because this is a sample environment, I don't have the option to turn anything on, but this would not be grayed out if it was an active file. So I'm just going to hit discard. And then next is invoice approval. So I threw this in there because, right, if you were to get an email saying, oh, this invoice had been created and it's just you, who's looking at it, then that could work as your invoice approval process or your bill approval process. But let's say there are multiple, there's multiple people within your organization who are approving and looking at things. You could use this multi-condition approval for both invoices and bills. So it basically says like your event starts when an invoice is created or edited. And then when your invoice is between 0 and 1,000, you request for approval from whoever, right? Like, let's say it's Sally and then it goes to Mary and then it goes to Joe. And that's kind of where your approval chain lies. But you can have it as a push notification, an email, or a task. It defaults as a task just because of the type that it is. And then you can edit the email that goes out. Hi, invoice number, blah, blah, blah. Just remembering not to change any of these is pending. And then you can hit save. Same with your push notification. An invoice needs your attention. Okay, and then, once you're satisfied with all your different parameters and everything's filled out and routed to the right person in the right place, you just hit save and turn on. This part can be confusing when there's multiple levels in your flow chart. So if you go to do this and you get confused, just let your SBA representative know. Okay, another cool feature, again, both on the invoice and the bill payment side, is any sort of modifications made after the invoice was sent out, right? So this could be good if you send an invoice out for $10,000 and you could turn this on, and if it's something's accidentally changed, you would get a notification saying, oh, this was changed, on this date or whatever it says. So this notify about invoice update, you can do this for both invoices and bills, and it'll just alert you if there were changes made after, like send notification after invoices created, after invoices updated. So that's a nice feature because you're just always aware of what's happening and what's going on. Another cool step that I would include in your AR workflow automation is payment reminders. So with the new business feed, which is this right here, one of the things I'm going to go over in the future is how QuickBooks and the AI is kind of automatically starting to do this. But if you still wanted to If you still wanted to set it up in your workflow, you could do this send payment reminder. So this will kind of just alert, a week before before the invoice is due. You could send an email to your customer, a push notification, and members of your team, like sending out this reminder that we need payment on this invoice. And you can pick, like, you can do 10 days, 3 days, 7 days, whatever your process is. And so you would just modify these. You can change the email, BCC yourself if you want, so you know it went out. I'd say it's a probably best practice to always blind copy somebody. So you're able to see when it goes out and what it looks like. And then you would just hit save, and then you would hit save and turn on here. Okay, so let's say you send out your invoices, you send out your reminders, and customer still hasn't paid. So one thing you can turn on is this overdue invoice memo. You can create a workflow that anytime an invoice is like 1 day past due and unpaid, you can literally have it put overdue in the message of the invoice. And that way, anytime that they go back into the invoice, it'll say overdue, which I think is pretty cool, especially if you have someone who's notorious for, maybe not following their terms properly. You can also notify your customers when they've paid and that you accepted it. So this notify customers about payment received. You can do the same thing. Notify your vendor that a payment's coming their way, notify a customer that you've received their payment. It's pretty nice just because I think a lot of times they'll get the receipt if they pay through QuickBooks, but if they just sent a check, they're not going to know that, you received the payment. But if you go into the invoice, receive the payment in QuickBooks, this will auto generate, send to whatever contacted that customer. Same goes for bills, right? When you pay the bill and you send out a check, it'll auto alert that vendor, hey, expect a payment from us in this amount. Especially with all of the fraud and everything that's going on, especially with checks, it's good to have that level of transparency. So another thing you can do with your customers on the AR side is send out statements. So you can do send recurring statements to customers, schedule and send balance forward, start the first day of every month and end never if you wanted to, but you can kind of adjust your verbiage here to say, attached is your monthly statement. Contact us with questions or whatever you want. And then you just set up the customer is whatever, all customers, you can kind of pick if you just have maybe one customer that, even needs this statement. So on the AP side, basically the majority of what I just showed you, you can do on the AP side. A few things that I've highlighted that are important on the vendor side is if you're issuing checks and you're printing them out of QuickBooks, I would include this missing vendor details reminder. If you're cutting checks and you don't have the right address, this will maybe auto send out to them of like, hey, we need this from you, or, could you send us this so we can get you paid? And same goes for this, get reminded about unused credits if you're going to pay a bill. And, you could get alerted about unused credits that vendor has that you can apply to the bill payment. That way it can help you kind of stay up to date. So there are a bunch, there are so many of these, I could go on and on. There are a bunch of different workflows that you can set up, right? Like if you do the PO process, you could incorporate that before your bills, same with the sales order. So yeah, there are plenty. If I didn't go over something that you're curious as to if QuickBooks can do this, feel free to reach out and I'm happy to explore it, see if it's possible. And that's all I have for you today. And that's everything for our workflow automation. Thank you all so much for joining me. I'm really excited for our next webinar. I think it's going to be super helpful. And yeah,